Colts Nation, if helmets or helmet accessories interest you, make sure to go to greengridiron.com and use code INDSYN at checkout to get the discount code with it. Whether it's mini helmets, full-size helmets, visors, clips, whatever it may be, different face masks, different variations of helmets, alternate helmets, whatever the case, you can get it at Green Gridiron. And again, that's code INDSYN at checkout for the discount. Thanks for stopping by for another video, and now let's get into it. What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where today we're going to talk a little bit about, hey, how do we get to the playoffs? And I feel like at this point, a lot of people might know the situation and exactly what needs to happen, right? And of course, we know as Colts fans, we need to win out. For anything to be possible, we got to win these games. And I know there's going to be a contingency of people that are already, like, they've turned on this video just to go in the comments, not even listen to it. Before I even say this, they've already said in the comments, we're not going to the playoffs, or we shouldn't go to the playoffs. We don't deserve to go to the playoffs. And all those things might be true. But nonetheless, this is a situation, right? As a Colts fan who would like to see us get into the playoffs, just to say we got to the playoffs, right? Got to have some little bit of success. Maybe getting to the playoffs means that Chris Ballard gets a little extra time. Maybe that's what that would be. Maybe because Bradley gets a little extra time. But the thing here is that we don't control our own destiny, which, you know, if you don't control your own destiny, then I'm with you, right? You don't really deserve to get into the playoffs. But as it stands, the Colts playoff odds are currently at 19%. Now, this information you can deduce by yourself. I am looking on Indy Star's website, though, something that was put out by Nat Newell. Hoping I'm saying that right. Want to give him some credit. But this was what I came to. It's got everything in short order. So here we go. The Colts are out of the playoffs if they lose to the Giants next week. That's pretty straightforward. And the playoffs are going to be pretty much set. If we lose and the Dolphins and the Bengals, like whatever happens with them, I actually think the Bengals are playing one of these teams that matters coming up. I believe Denver. So that's going to be a pretty massive game. Bengals, same record as us. Broncos, I believe now, I don't think we can touch the Broncos. So for us, it's really more, hey, what's going to happen with the Chargers? So as we go through this, let's see, the Colts can make the playoffs if they win out and the Chargers lose out. Okay, and this says if the Colts win out against the Giants and the Jaguars, they'll be 9-8. If the Chargers lose to the Raiders and Patriots, the Colts would win the conference record tiebreaker if they are the only two teams with 9 wins. Okay, and that's important, and some of this gets a little confusing, and I'm not going to lie to you, some of it I don't quite understand, but what I do know is that with 2 teams at 9 wins, as long as the Chargers lose out, we would be in the playoffs. Now, there's another scenario with 3 teams, and like I think the Dolphins are involved. And if somebody ends up with, or a couple teams end up, 3 teams end up with 9 wins and something, then the Colts would still be able to get in. Something weird. Like some of this gets kind of weird with tiebreakers and whatnot. I think part of that is what's coming up here next, where it says how the Colts can make the playoffs if they win out and the Broncos lose out. And this says if the Broncos lose to Cincinnati and Kansas City, which is possible, like entirely possible. Cincinnati, incredible offense. We'll see what their defense does. Bo Nix could put up a lot of numbers in that Cincinnati game. But then Kansas City being Kansas City. Of course, the tough thing is that Kansas City, and then as I'm sitting here recording this video, currently the Kansas City Steelers game is on up here. If you see me look up, that's what I'm looking at. It's currently 13-0 Kansas City, and they've been controlling this game. So we'll see what happens, assuming they beat the Steelers and are able to hang on in this game. Then when they go to play the Broncos, they could be resting all their players. So the Broncos could be having an easy Week 18 win, which makes this scenario a lot more unlikely when you think about how that could work out, what this game is currently looking like, and what that could mean for Week 18. So we'll see what happens. But nonetheless, 2 games that the Broncos could end up losing if things play out the right way. And if they lose and the Colts win out, we would make the playoffs if Cincinnati or Miami were to win out as well, or the Chargers were to lose out. So if the Broncos and the Chargers both lose out, the Colts would be in the playoffs. But even if the Broncos were to lose out and Chargers ended up winning at least one of their games. I feel like Chargers, very good chance they win both of their games. So we really more so need the Broncos to find a way to lose out is what we're really hinging upon as we go forward. I think that's probably the most likely thing, right? And then more information as we go on here. The Colts lose the head-to-head tiebreaker to Denver if it's just those two teams. If Los Angeles is also 9-8 with Indy in Denver, if Los Angeles also 9-8, it wins the division tiebreaker over the Broncos due to head-to-head and advances to the wild card tiebreaker. So if three of us end up 9-8, right? If we all end up 9-8, then you would end up in a spot where the Colts make the playoffs, but then also Los Angeles, because they have the head-to-head against the Broncos, they would get into the playoffs again. It all gets very confusing. But in that scenario, of the Chargers, the Colts, and the Broncos all being 9-8, then that means Denver would actually be on the outside looking in, which is kind of crazy, kind of weird. And it says in this scenario, the Colts and Dolphins would have the best conference record at 7-5, eliminating the other possible teams. Indianapolis beat Miami, putting them in the playoffs. So if Miami could win out, which would actually be good for us, right? And because of our head to head with Miami, we are up on them. So there's definitely ways for us to get into the playoffs. It's going to be tough. As I'm sitting here, the Steelers just scored. They already had another touchdown that got wiped off the board because of a holding and then had a turnover. They get the ball back. They score. Seemingly going to be 13-7 here or 13-6, whatever the case. And Steelers could pull this off, and maybe Kansas City is playing their starters against Denver in Week 18. That would be ideal. It really just depends, like, what's the rest of the AFC going to look like? Because the Chiefs, if they beat the Steelers here, then they automatically have the number one seed for sure. The only team in the AFC that can contest the number one seed is the Bills, because the Bills beat the Chiefs head to head in the regular season, and the Bills are currently 12-3. So the Chiefs have to hold on against the Steelers. If the Steelers were to come back, if the Steelers were to pull off a win against Kansas City, the game is in Pittsburgh. Hopefully they're able to do it, right? That'd be good for us. Then the Chiefs would need to play their starters so that they can go beat the Broncos. And if the Broncos were to somehow win that game, then Kansas City would lose the number one seed. Now, we would need Kansas City to win that game. So we need the Steelers to come back, win this game. And by the time this video comes out, you already know, and we already know what happened in that game and whether or not the Steelers did it. But nonetheless, we need Kansas City to be able to beat Denver. That seems like the most likely. Like I just don't see the Chargers losing to the Raiders and the Patriots. I just don't see it happening. Of course, I hope it does, so that we can get in the playoffs. But I just don't see it happening. Again, we don't control our own destiny, which makes all of this hard to talk about. And hey, we need this to happen and this to happen and tiebreakers and da da da. We had plenty of chances, man. We had plenty of chances. We've lost a lot of one-score games where all we had to do was just execute throughout the game, and we could have won. And listen, great teams execute, man, and we just weren't able to do it. But likely we finished 9-8 this season, and we'll see whether or not we're able to get into the playoffs. But these are the scenarios that we're looking at, and hopefully we're able to pull it off. I'd like to know your thoughts on whether or not you think we can pull it off. You let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you continue to get notified anytime we have any more content dropping on this channel. We'll be live for the game on Sunday. Make sure you drop by, and of course I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.